Hey everyone, welcome to this special edition of the Stable Minded Podcast. I'm your host Bob Griffin, and along with my co-host Gabby Greco, we would like to thank you for tuning in. The idea for today's episode came after so much amazing feedback around Betty Krieger's first appearance on Stable Minded. While talking to Donna Smith about how much great feedback we were getting, she told us that the Monarch Show Series National Championship would sponsor a follow-up discussion with Betty. We would like to thank Monarch for their belief and support of the IASFA initiatives like this podcast that strive to make a difference in not only our association and its members, but our entire show horse community. Real quick, if you haven't already, go back and listen to Betty's first podcast, Mindset in Motion. And for those of you who have, I hope that you've already taken the disc test on Betty's website, straightshotinc.com. It's a free test, so you may as well take it. And hopefully you've tried out some of the tips that she gave in that first episode, such as starting a notebook, maybe starting a vision board, putting together a video, or creating a mantra. Our goal today is to give you the feel of what a second session with Betty would feel like. You get to step inside 4 mini sessions with Betty and one of us that scored highest in a specific personality type. To pull this off, we've gotten some help from 2 friends of ours, Alex Fisher-McMenamy and Chris Harman. And along with Gabby and myself, each of us scored highest in a different personality trait on the disc test. And one more thing before you hit the fast forward button and skip to the discussion on the specific personality type that you scored highest in. Remember that we are made up of some percentage of each of the 4 personality types, and Betty teaches us that we are trying to create an equal balance among each of them. That being said, hopefully you will hear a little bit of yourself in each of our sessions and can find a takeaway in all of them. And now, let's kick things off with Betty and Alex Fisher-McMenamy. Alex grew up as a junior exhibitor riding and showing on the IASFA show circuit. She parlayed that experience into becoming a professional horse trainer and riding instructor, now with over a decade's worth of experience. She scored highest in dominance, or what Betty likes to call her lions. People in this group are driven, competitive, and can be focused on results. And now, here's Betty and Alex.
Alex, what I do in general as a performance coach is we're going to kind of get into your profile as a competitor and then look at some strengths and weaknesses. And my whole thought process with my job is to get everyone to find a little more balance. In other words, a balanced mindset is more of a professional, cool, calm, collected mindset. So my whole goal is to kind of ask you questions and see how much dominance you have. And then we'll kind of talk about some fun tools you can go away with that might make a really big difference. So my first question, with dominance being the competitive spirit in the profile, how much did you test? What percentage?
I have a 56% dominant.
Okay, so you are definitely one of my lions. 56 is getting up to the moon and back, which is awesome. There is never any bad profile, but that just means that your strengths, we'll start with those, and you can chime in at any time. You like a challenge? Is that true?
Yes.
You are a very competitive spirit and dream and think and want to win.
Yes.
Think about outcome a lot, the ribbons, how you're going to do. Performance is important.
I would say most of the time, yes. I have a question that bounces off of that, actually. So I was reflecting on this past weekend at the show we were all at, and with dominance and being worried about ribbons per se, because I would say if talking to a lot of students, that's one of the largest things that you can link dominance to is your performance base. Did I get a blue ribbon? And leaving with that. And I was in a situation where I was showing a horse for a client, and on looking back at my performance, I always enter a class kind of thinking to myself, I could win this. But I was second in the class, but I didn't leave disappointed in myself per se. So I don't know if that's a little emotional maturity, if it was the fact that I had to turn on my professional brain since it was a client's horse, or if it was, I don't know. That's where I guess I'd look to you there.
What is your second highest trait? Not to get kind of in the weeds, but what is your second highest number? Is it S by chance or influence?
It's not.
Okay. Influence was higher, so you're a DI. then. Okay, that answers that question. So you're super competitive, but a layer behind that is wanting to please and make peace and just kind of go on and be able to kind of get over it a little bit easier and rationalize things and be positive. And it was a client and kind of go on with it. If so, that kind of that second layer of your personality being wanting to please, a cheerleader yourself, staying positive, that helped you get over that. Where if that was lower, then you'd kind of have trouble. So, what is your next show and what are you getting ready for?
I guess it would be Monarch. It would
Monarch.
be that's the biggest one that we're leading up to.
Okay. And do you think if you had some tools going into Monarch to kind of balance the need to think outcome, think ribbon, performance, how is this going to go? I want to do really well, and then trying to possibly please clients, please yourself, and the hope to do really well for the whole group. If you could dial those down, do you think that would help you enjoy and stay in more of the process over outcome for the show? Does that sound like?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely the process rather than just the end result.
Absolutely. So basically, when I work with, and this is a hard sell to somebody that's really competitive, because I'm sure you have done very well over the years with your competitive spirit. And here I'm coming into your life to say, hey, we need to find ways to be the cool, calm, collected athlete in the arena so that you can find more focus, get out of your own way instead of thinking the outcome of the ribbon. Just kind of dive into the power of now and ride that horse underneath you every step and then just see what happens. That's elite athlete mind space. And it's fascinating because we kind of always think it's opposite of that. Like, you want it bad enough, go get it, and all of that. And that's kind of opposite of what I preach and that I learned from Olympian athletes is you want to let go of outcome, just want to kind of find a chill frequency, let all of that go and go and execute. Execution is loss of space and time. And lions, as we know, which I was one with golf, we're pretty revved up, a lot of frequency, a lot of clutter. And, we want to try to find some tools for you going into Monarch to kind of settle down. So,
Sounds great.
there's a million tools. I'm just going to pull this out of I think, have you ever heard or done breathing exercises, daily breathing exercises?
I can say to you, I've attempted, but it is one of those things that the mind just wanders a little bit too. Like 30 seconds in, it's like, oh, I got to do this. This happened 3 days ago.
So breathing is the number one way to calm heart rate, blood pressure, mind frequency down so that you can execute something. You'll see a lot of, next time you watch your favorite athlete on TV, you'll see that. So being competitive, we kind of rush through things or think whatever, if you can make time to incorporate breathing into just your daily work at the barn for the show and then pre-show before you compete. I mean, with you, I would just coach you to say, let's breathe in through the nose, hold your breath, breathe out your mouth, and repeat. Breathing is the way for all of that clutter that you experience throughout the week in the show, and especially before you show. That is one of the easiest ways to find a calm mind, more of a present moment mindset, and more focus before you go into the ring. And so it's really called 4-5-8, 4 seconds through the nose, hold your breath for 5, breathe out for 8, but you don't even have to worry about it. It's just kind of do some breathing. You're experienced enough, of course, to incorporate breathing into the show ring and maybe just having a plan for where you're going to, do some breathing in the ring. And that will help as well during execution of that. So it sounds almost too simple. And it's so simple that we forget to breathe. But if you will incorporate that into your Monarch week, you will be really surprised if you'll try that. Another tool is just what story are you writing? I would assume at 52%, you are plowing through the week headstrong. You have a lot of grit about you, I bet, and you're just going to make things happen.
You could say that.
Yeah, I know that about Alex. She is gonna get stuff done.
Yes. It's a great gift to have a lot of that. But when you get too much of a great thing of plowing through and um, it can become really quickly where you're in your own way and things get on a roll of not going so well, and then it comes back and you kind of are on kind of an inconsistent pattern of your feelings or whatever. Does that happen?
Yeah, I'm like trying to reflect on certain situations, but I'm sure it's things are great, and then one thing happens, and then it's just a switch of the mindset there.
Yes, and usually it comes from my lions have a lot of emotion within. And if we can kind of think logic over emotion and kind of calm down for the week and stay more present moment and in a schedule, in a task list, live more present moment and less emotion, you're going to have like the best week you've ever had. So it's kind of like looking at the story of what is the status quo as a lion. And if we can kind of calm those frequencies down, live a little bit more by a task list, which is logical, staying in this moment, controlling the controllables, because as lions, we like to control a lot, and write a story of what process can I set up for the week and trust that process, and I'm going to have a great outcome without stressing over the outcome. So, how do you write a new story? Sometimes mantras are good, one phrase, coming up with a phrase for the week to kind of live by. My lions sometimes don't like notebooks because it kind of forget about things. Or like me, it's like, why do I have to write things down? I'm a golf pro. I've got it in my head. But writing things down sometimes brings a calmness and less emotion. You're just going to follow a schedule, follow a mantra, whatever. I think just kind of thinking about what story do you want to write that's a little bit newer, a little more chill, and kind of adopt that. So, how's that for two tools to kind of, work on? And as I understand, you're not only a trainer, um, wearing the training hat, but also showing horses for clients, correct?
Yes.
So, just experimenting with trusting me that being calmer for the week is going to bring you an execution mindset to get a lot more done for the week successfully.
No, that definitely all makes sense. And I am an obsessive list writer. So you saying that, putting it out, following a bit more of a schedule, that definitely is a tool that I already use. But what you were mentioning before, being a lion, saying to yourself, why am I writing this down? It's all in my head. So when I was listening to the previous podcast that the three of you did, one thing that I was trying to think more about my teenage students and whatnot, and how when I was 14, 15 years old, especially probably with a similar disc score to what I have now, I, I would not be one to pick up a notebook and journal about my feelings or anything like that. But for someone else who is higher in influence, steadiness, compliance, they might enjoy that. But that I feel like seeing that that's something that I'm resistant to would definitely be something that I could benefit from. So is there a specific prompt or two that if a lion wanted to get a little bit of their emotions out on paper prior to showing or prior to their week ahead that you would suggest using?
Yes. Journaling is a great way. Get all your frustrations out, your, as lions, we dream that's why we're in it, is to compete and win and try to get your frustrations out about, sure, it's great to win and have all of this competitive nature of wanting to put everything I have into things. But maybe we can direct that towards practice and develop some goals and try 10%, practice 10% harder, but learn to let the show just go. There's very little you can control at the horse show. And as lions, we like to control everything. We want to think that we can. And our only fear is not being in control. That's usually a lion's only fear at a show, of don't have any control over something. So, yes, back to journaling is wonderful for feelings, task lists, riding into a class with just 2 objectives. If I do X and X, I'll have a pretty good co. Let's just worry about those 2 things. So the notebook helps a whole lot. In fact, with my business, I would say the notebook is the magic to my business. I try to get everybody to have a notebook. It's magical. Paper is magic. We wouldn't think of going through school without a notebook. We wouldn't think of doing our jobs without pen and paper or a schedule or whatever. And here you put a lot of effort into your sport, but nobody has a notebook except professionals. And yes. So yes, that would help a lot.
I think about myself, or think about a lot of students that I teach. What would you suggest for dominant riders about getting their emotions out? I feel like you would have, whether it's yourself or a student, they're probably that more explosive person when it comes to their emotions. And when I think about students, I guess I'll speak for myself here. I know I'm an emotional person, but I don't always feel the most comfortable expressing those emotions. And that could definitely apply to not wanting to talk to my trainer about it, because I'm maybe embarrassed about my emotions or embarrassed about my performance. So I feel like kids these days, kind of flipping script here, end up talking to their friends a lot about that, which then your friend could potentially be your competitor, or people. I know I won't really go into this, but social media is a really big thing as well. People go to social media to have that as an outlet, and we all know that that's probably not the best thing to do. So for someone that I'm going to assume is a dominant person with these explosive emotions afterwards, is there a tool for maybe post show with these emotions? Because I would say for myself too, post showing, if I had a bad go in that moment, I'm probably not going to want to talk to my trainer about this. I'm probably going to want to go cry about it. Now, as I've gotten older, it's not a public display of emotion anymore. But again, kind of circling back, a good tool for more of those post emotions.
Yes. So definitely both the D and the C's are the ones on each end of the spectrum that can feel a lot of emotions. The C's are going to feel a lot of pain and let down, and it's a lot of emotion. Then the D's are just going to be flat out mad at themselves, mad at the judge, mad at the circumstances, mad at whatever, find something to be mad about. What I get people to try to commit to me about is that if you are feeling emotions, it's not good to start talking right after you get out of the class. To set an alarm for 40 minutes, 45, an hour, whatever, and just not even reference things until you have calmed down to be more logical about the strengths and the weaknesses of the ride. So just basically don't reference or do or try to fix or try to do. When I'm working with children, then you have a complex situation of parents that are trying to help or talk or coach or whatever, also with the poor performance. But I try to get the kids to commit to the fact that right after the show is the time to go back and get your stuff off, and then think about going to get ice cream or something. And then we will, when you're in a better mind space, talk to the trainer, write some things down, and logically be able to communicate and everything without, being upset, crying, and so on. And little by little, they start to realize that when I'm working again with someone at the elite 0.05% talent level, they don't do that. They don't explode. We think they do. We might see them on a game or whatever, but it's gone in 0.5 seconds. They're not doing that after the game. They separate their self-worth and who they are from their craft. And I think as amateurs, it becomes, well, I am the person if I'm winning or what or how I do. And it kind of brings up all that emotion. So if you kind of get to the point where you're not referencing it right away and you learn to calm down about it, it'll become a process of getting better with it. Does that make any sense?
Definitely. I'm really happy that you just linked the dominant and the compliant people, because I was just writing down, do you agree? Because I feel like there might be some overlap there. And I sent the disc test to a number of students, and the ones that I can look back on and think, okay, this person after they show has a ton of emotion, a ton they want to talk about, and a ton they want to get off their chest. And it showed both the dominant and the compliant. So I'm happy that you just touched base on that.
Yes, and I have an equitation rider that sets an alarm for an hour, and so on. And you can set alarms. You can um, immediately try to go do something like, ice cream or go have some fun and then come back. But the notebook, again, I keep referencing that. That is my magical thing in my business, because then they can journal and their worst strengths. There has to be 1 to 2 things that went right. Write those down and kind of concentrate on those. And then, of course, write down what didn't, and then develop a plan for this next week and create a little glimmer of hope that we can fix that. And then my favorite speech for my high dominance is what my mom used. I didn't like it when she gave me the speech way back. I was a all-American junior world champion, blah, 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 grew up in golf, high level. And, she had the speech about the fact that, again, this is a journey. And if you just keep winning all the time, that's not learning and growing and progressing in terms of being able to be prepared when things don't go well in a national or an international setting or whatever. That when unfortunate things happen, it's actually a gift with a big red bow around it, presenting itself to where you can work through it, so that then in maybe a bigger situation, it's not going to happen because you already went through that. So that is also an elite mindset of looking at things, if you want to get really zen about it, which is, when you're a top 6 draft in the, NBA, you're going to think this way, where there really is no failure. And a lot of people are like, what? That it's learning experiences. Okay, I didn't really fail. It presented itself as something that, as a gift that I need to work on so that I can be even better. And when you start to develop that cool, calm mindset, looking at things like that, you can achieve anything. And then the last thing I'll say too is put your direction back to your horse. Your horse really doesn't deserve. They're doing the best that they can. And if you can kind of start thinking in that, maybe that will also limit the outbursts or the emotions or whatever, that your horse doesn't quite deserve that reaction.
This episode is brought to you in part through the generous support of the Monarch Show Series National Championship. It's their efforts to build a better, stronger, and more inclusive horse show industry that makes projects like this podcast possible. Make sure to join us for this year's show in September at the historic Illinois State Fairgrounds in Springfield, Illinois. For more information, go to monarchshowseries.com.
Next up is Chris Harman. Chris has been a client of mine for over 15 years, and she has owned and shown such horses as Champion the Foxy Prince, Highly Caffeinated, Champion Burnout, Credit Crunch, and is now taking on the challenge of a relatively young show pleasure horse, Calorama's the Frenchman. Chris scored highest in influence. This personality type tends to thrive on relationships, fun, and community. Betty says they're in it for the joy and camaraderie. And now, Betty and Chris.
The next will be Chris, my high eye otter. I call those my otters.
I'm the otter. I also feel like I'm amongst royalty. So thank you all for having me. This is fantastic. I love to see how this all works behind the scenes. I'm going to tell everybody. Love it.
So you have a wonderful pleasure horse, and tell me about, like, I guess you're going to Monarch as well, and tell me a little bit about what's coming up and maybe some issues as a high social person that you experience.
Sure. So I have a younger horse. I love him. He challenges me in every way possible. I've had to hit the gym. I bought a Peloton row. I've had friends buy Peloton rows. We're all talking about it. He's great, and Bob is a great detail-orientated coach, which I need and I appreciate. One of the challenges that I have is I learned a long time ago that Bob gives me a set of rules and he gives the horse a set of rules. And as long as we both follow the rules, all goes well. My challenge is it takes a lot of intention for me to slow down and focus on the details and the mechanics of the rules to get the job done well. That's been my biggest challenge. And this horse tells on me, Betty. He tells on me. If I am not following the rules, everybody watching is going to know.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what was your score for influence? What was your number?
I am 37%.
Okay, so high I is someone that has a big motor inside with lots of thoughts. You're able to take in a lot at a horse show or take in a lot at practice. Being a high I, you're a connector. And it was kind of funny, you started out talking about how much you love your horse. My connectors, high eyes, have a different relationship sometimes with their horses of a true, like, love, like strong, correct? Because
Correct.
you're a
Yes.
connector. And that's wonderful, but sometimes that also can become a weakness where you want things to go so well that sometimes backfires in that. And Bob might not even realize that, how strong of a connection you have to your horse. So all great things in balance, but with an imbalance of 37%, you are taking in a whole lot, maybe not wanting to hurt your horse. We haven't talked about Bob. You're trying to please him because of your connection, and he probably doesn't even understand that bond from your side of how strong that is, that you want to do what he's saying really bad.
I think that's really well said. I wrote down in prep for this, I wrote down my 2 top priorities: being a good partner to my horse and being a good student to my trainer.
Spoken like a high I. Yes. So some of the negatives I've already talked about a little bit is your mind can get cluttered with a whole lot. A situation like pre-show, instead of possibly having AirPods in and maybe a little quiet time, you will be a perfect candidate, a target for people to ask you for help because you'll help people. You can get a little off track pre-show with doing things or whatever, where you should maybe have a strict schedule. I'm talking about 40 minutes before you show, of kind of toning things down and getting in your own little bubble and everything. Too much would kind of actually backfire, but I'd say about 40 minutes or so of really starting to dial in, starting to focus, starting to think of, I don't know, being a little bit greedy about yourself, going in and owning the ring, having fun with you and your horse, where your mind sometimes, I would think, under pressure might go towards who all's watching, wanting to have a good go for your friends or family, what you're going to look like in front of everybody. What is the footing of the ring? Oh my gosh, should I go up there and check? You take in a lot, therefore you kind of start worrying a lot about a lot. How am I doing with that?
Spot on. absolutely spot on. The strict schedule that you're referring to, I would love to be in my own bubble for 40 minutes. How do I create that bubble, or what does that look like?
First of all, it's difficult for high eyes because, again, you are a connector and I'm asking you to disconnect. So it's a process learning how to do it. But the first steps would be something like I can get kind of out there a little bit sometimes with my tools, but like I have somebody that brings Legos or needlepoint or a craft to kind of, or a book, whatever, would kind of, it has to be mobile, it has to be easy, right, to bring to the show. But just a few minutes of doing that activity kind of, people aren't going to come up to you if you have your AirPods in listening to music or listening to a podcast or whatever. They're probably not going to, you're disconnecting with an activity like needlepoint, you're disconnecting a little bit. Taking a walk, going in, if your horse is one that Bob allows you to go in, you can maybe do some breathing exercises that I discussed with Alex. You could go into the stall of the horse and actually work on your breathing exercises. So again, with you, it will backfire if it's too much time, but just trying to learn to unclutter everything and just have some quiet time. So you can kind of choose your activities that will do that. I have somebody right now that is also 37% high I, and they go to the car and sit in their car. Their car kind of brings them a relaxation, a peace area, and they go sit in their car. Now you got to be very conscientious of your time and be focused and organized with your time and when to be back. But something like that might work as well.
That is very helpful. Thank you.
A notebook will also be a go-to for you to keep organized and focused. What are your 2 goals or rules for the class with Bob? What are those? And go over those and write them down. That will probably help you feel less stressed, and that, okay, if I can do these 2 to 3 things, I'll probably have a pretty good go following these rules.
I wanted to ask you with the notebook too. In the last session, you talked about good things to put into your notebook. So just in my weekly riding sessions, when I get off that horse, should I be dumping into my notebook what I have learned that week? How do you envision that? Is it like strengths, weaknesses of the ride? Is it takeaways?
My professionals that have perfected this craft of writing and data and input and kind of a Navy SEAL mentality with this, you get off the horse and at some point you write down your strengths of the physical aspects of your ride and the mental aspects of your ride. Then you're going to go into the weaknesses of the physical part and then the weaknesses of your mind space. You don't stop there. You then look at action steps for the next week to institute into your calendar of how you are going to approach the weaknesses with great training. And this is where, with the right instructors that have the time and are willing to, just a few minutes of, sure, this is what we're going to work on this week to target those weaknesses and build on those strengths. And can you imagine the rider you're going to be in a year taking that approach with your notebook? I mean, it's golden. So if you're open to that, that's a lot, but you could make it fun with stickers. You could make it kind of fun with colored pencils, colored pens, jokes, stickers, kind of make it a fun thing.
And then, Betty, am I going to log my strengths, weaknesses, and action steps regardless of whether I ride my fanciest show horse or I do a lunge lesson on, the school horse?
If you're super committed and willing to do it and wanting to really advance your mindset and craft and get better, yes. Catalog everything. Yes. Professionals do that. Bob's taking note of every horse he works and everything. And, that would be like you skip. Why take notes on the lunge lesson or the practice? Just wait to take notes on the show. You're going to miss a lot of data that's going to be important for that show.
Really happy that you touched base on that, because at least can speak for myself as an instructor, you can definitely see that there is sometimes a disconnect with students between, oh, I was on the old 26-year-old versus, wow, this was the exciting new horse that we just got in, and that's all the hype. And or if it's a barn show and it's just you're showing against everyone that you ride with every Tuesday versus nationals, bringing that same mentality and bringing that same pre-show, pre-lesson or post-lesson, post-show mentality to it. Like you said, you have to choose to be that committed and treat all of them equally with the same amount of intention and care, I guess. Don't just care about the big thing.
Well said. Absolutely.
I was just going to mention, to go back to your, it's a show, the horses, to tie it back to them, they don't know that it's Louisville. They don't know that it's the Monarch National Championship Finals. They don't know it's the Equitation Finals. They're just at another show. And I think a lot of times like what you said, Betty, you have to a step above drowsy. And I think that's hard for people when they go to these big shows. So like, oh my gosh, I'm at a big show. Your horse doesn't know that. But if you translate that to them, and if you're nervous, or if you're not having that focal point, if you're not doing your steps before, you're writing your notebook, your strengths and weaknesses, you can, I feel like, transfer that nervous energy to your horse.
Absolutely. I have one barn. They take this very seriously, where everyone has to kind of, the parents have to leave at a certain point for everyone to kind of dial down and everything. They're really intent on the energy before showing needs to be as calm as possible. Therefore, you can socialize and talk for a little bit, but now it's time for everybody to leave. And that sounds, a little brutal and everything, but it works wonderfully because it kind of dials down again rather than everybody around making it, building that energy. And a lot of people come to watch with the bigger shows and whatever, and you just want to do everything you can to keep that tension and stress, and that it's a bigger show or world championship and qualify this and that, and keep that down. So I think they're in their second year of doing that, and it has been really interesting to see how the kids can then just dial in, relaxed, start to get focused, and performing better because of that. Because, a lot of people, especially your family or spectators, they might not be able to go, but boy, they'll go to the World Championship or the Monarch or whatever, but weren't at the smaller ones. And then it becomes, this is different. This is bigger. More people are here and everything. And you want to try to limit that and not to have that feelings. It's hard. All these things I'm talking about are not easy.
Can I ask one more quick question? Betty, is there such a thing as personality trait compatibility?
Yes, very much so.
Who gets along?
Yes. Let's see. Usually the high compliance kind of stressed out person will sometimes find a cheerleader, high I, to kind of connect with and make an interesting connection. I'm not just saying that because that is true. The high dominance individuals will often find a somewhat introverted, loyal person that will do things for them. It's not anything bad. It's just kind of like connections of somebody that is compatible in the sense that the S is not going to look at them as, a big, they're going to get along well, not going to butt heads and so on. It is interesting that high Ds can be friends with other high Ds. They get themselves, they can needle each other. They can say something awful and then let it roll off their back like nothing ever and go on. Where if that high D said those things to another, like a S or a C personality, that, they would internalize it, where two D's together are just kind of, and so on. I see a lot of girls, too high eyes, funny, social, flitting around, having a blast, and making even more friends and getting groups of together. That's interesting, as well. But then they'll play off of each other and not be focused at all. So those are some examples.
Love it. May I ask you another question?
Yes.
In your previous podcast, you talked about when we go into the ring and compete, we want to be one level above drowsy, I believe is the word you used. And that makes a ton of sense. My question is, how do I go in with a one level above drowsy mindset into the ring, but maintain the balance of still being sharp and alert?
Ooh, good question. So it is kind of confusing and a myth that the harder you think, the better you're going to do is a myth. That's not sports science. What sports science proves is that a mind that's low megahertz, that's dialed way down, is a clear mind that activates the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is where athleticism is, intuitiveness, balance, being able to do 30,000 things at the same time without stressing, without just autopilot. And it's also where your training just kind of comes out. People say step out of your own way mentally. What that scientifically means is you have dialed down the conscious brain so that the back brain, the subconscious, powerful brain that never goes to sleep, that's where we get dreams from, great visualization, and the ability to ride into the ring and know where everyone is without having to stress about it, being able to be at the right space at the right time without stress. That's the subconscious kicking in that knows where every single rider is in the ring. But the problem is, if your mind is cluttered, if your mind is high frequency, you cannot perform athletically with that mind space of a cluttered mind. So your question was, how do I be just above drowsy to enable that back brain to operate and yet still have focus? The answer is dial it down, and the subconscious will take care of the focus. Formula One race car drivers, professional bull riders are famous for just dialing down so much and then just put it on autopilot.
So is that when you're saying the drowsy for maybe someone who's just started riding or they haven't necessarily gotten into showing yet, is that something that us as instructors, when we say muscle memory, is that a more basic term for what you're trying to describe then?
Yes, when you say let's let muscle memory, just let your muscle memory kick in, that means turn your brain completely off. Nothing upstairs. Let the muscle memory happen. It's really the subconscious mindset. The subconscious has brain mapped everything in your life. Scientists don't even understand the subconscious brain. It's so crazy powerful. It has mapped every single thing. It never goes to sleep. Tom Brady, football player, was famous for talking about the subconscious being able to read the field with, thousands of fans, the noise and everything, but being able to read the field and hit the receiver. How do you do that? You don't think about it. So that's a great point.
Can your disc score change?
Yes, absolutely.
Is that with age, maturity, therapy? How does it change?
So lots of factors. Number one, the crazy thing is like my profile for shooting skeet is totally different than my profile of me riding my great mare. You put me on the golf course and I'll totally Jekyll and Hyde, into a high lion there. I'm going to walk and look like I own the turf and that nobody can touch me. In the barn, I have trouble finding that confidence, right? Walking in, it's like, oh gosh, So you can be different in different areas of your life. then of course your profile can change over time. And that's one of my goals with people. It's really fun when I've worked with them a year or two and they retest to a more balanced profile that we're always after. And they're competing better, enjoying things better, killing it, and connecting with their horse better, getting along with their instructor and trainer. That relationship is great and everything with a more balanced profile. Yes, I am looking for changes, just like this with this mini sessions tonight. It's like we gotta kind of bring things down in that percentage of this profile that or this specific trait that we're talking about. And the crazy thing is just a little bit of work on finding balance is a huge shift, as maybe Bob can explain that later, that he felt, just with little things.
So is the goal really to have roughly 25% of each trait?
Yeah, around. And I came up with this theory kind of on my own. Usually, if you would go to a disc consultant with this, they will try to find ways for you to compete and live and function as your profile. What I try to do is go, no, we can find some balance, because what was happening as my clients that came to me as I started to get professional clients, my NBA basketball player, my NFL combine player, my pre-Olympic volleyball player, they would take the test, and I was always used to very imbalance, right? Thinking, well, that's okay, and they were all perfectly balanced through trials, tribulations, failures, finding their way, finding ways to find balance without really know what they were doing, great coaching. And so I was like, wonder what would happen if I, with my amateurs, just try to have them go on this journey of finding a little more balance. Because I have people that have almost zero of what you have, Chris. They don't have any fun at their hobby and don't have any fun showing, and find fun ways to bring cookies to the barn, try to engage, try to be a little bit of a connector. All of a sudden, they're lighting it up in the show ring. So, finding ways to find balance is very powerful.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. This is so much fun.
And now it's Gabby Greco's turn. Most of you know her as my co-host on Stable Minded, and some of you are fortunate enough to know her as your trainer and instructor at Highland Ridge Stables in Concord, Wisconsin. When Gabby took the DISC test, she scored highest in steadiness. People in this personality type value consistency, patience, and strategy. Betty says they learn step by step, thrive with process, and are always willing to keep on learning. And now here's Betty and Gabby.
Are we ready, Gabby, my high S beaver?
I'm ready.
We were able to get a little bit. Gabby knows about her profile, I would say, right? And some of the strengths and the weaknesses. So we can kind of just jump right in. Do you want to share with them what you've kind of learned about a strategic steadiness trait is, what that is and feels like?
I got a lot going on in my head always. I mean, you remember, but I mean,
I kind of put you on the spot there too.
It's all good. Yeah, 42%. So I think knowing how I am, very chill, almost to a fault sometimes. And I think just, doing this, I'm trying to remember what you said, Betty, of like the strategy of that and showing. And I think sometimes I need a little bit of the dominance thing, because I don't go into stuff like thinking, oh, yeah, I could win this class, or I could, like what Alex says, like I think I'm the opposite. And I think I need some of that sometimes. Or even with like I'm teaching people, I'm like, well, they just do all this stuff correct. I mean, that's good, but yeah.
So Gabby is high strategic steadiness trait, which is a processor, thinker, patient, loyal to a fault sometimes, wanting things to come in a certain order or process where she feels comfortable learning that way. Those are all very positive, especially for equitation, for horsemanship in general. Like, it's easy to work with an S that kind of looks at things like I am on a journey to learn. I'm a student of the game. This is a blast. I'm going to be patient and go through these years of horsemanship and building my craft. Where as a lion, we kind of want to plow through that and not have the patience to do that. So there's a real advantage to being high S. You're smart, you're strategic, you're always thinking, but with so much of a great thing comes overthinking, analysis. What is it? Paralysis through analysis. You can get stuck mentally. You can actually think so much that you back off of being aggressive because you've gotten yourself in such a state of thinking and overthinking, and you start to back off and have self-doubt and turn a little bit negative. Correct? I think we talked about that. And that kind of makes us, I say us because I can be this way, where, you start thinking so much about something, then you kind of back off of it. Lose that dominance perspective of stop thinking, just get it done. Get it done. I think we talked a little bit about how confidence is simply a feeling of self-appreciation and that you can do something coming up. And when you tend to overthink, that is that cluttered mindset that we've talked about. A lot of frequency, a lot of thoughts, and confidence can kind of drift away really quickly. So learning again to dial down all of those thoughts, simplify things a little bit, helps performance because then you've kind of gotten out of your own way and you can be more dominant that way. One of my questions is that I find with a lot of people with your percentage, how can you get self-talk, get negative pretty quickly when you're in kind of that hamster wheel run of starting to overthink before the show or before leaving for a show?
I mean, I think, yeah, now that I think about it, for me, the looking online at classes, right, especially for my clients, it's like, oh yeah, well, they could do well if they did all these things correct, but if they do this thing, then they're not going to do so well. And it's like, well, it's not exactly true. And I mean, and for me as well, it's like, well, if I show this horse and I do this wrong, then it's over for me. I think, yeah, I mean, it can kind of sometimes get in the way a little bit, and I maybe subconsciously think like that. Like, I just kind of just shut down. I'm like, okay, well, this isn't gonna go well, so then it's just gonna, whatever. It's already over before it started.
Yes. And that's what high S's, that's one of the big weaknesses. And you just said it beautifully, how it can happen pretty quick by just looking at a class list or who's going or whatever. And you can be 2.5 seconds later doubting things or, oh gosh, this isn't going to go well or whatever. There've been Olympian studies about self-talk being one of the slim edge things that is the difference between the gold medalists and everybody else. Self-talk is probably one of the most instrumental things in mind space of sports. Is how do you really talk to yourself? Are you calling yourself an idiot and oh my gosh, we could never beat that horse. So what am I didn't know they were in my class. This isn't going to go well. And sometimes we're not even aware of it, how negative that we are. And that's where the notebook can also kind of come in, just that doodling, journaling, kind of writing things down. And when you see the frequency of your hand writing some real negative things, it's powerful. And you can kind of finally wake up and go, wow, but at least you got it out, and then you can rip the paper and rip it up and throw it away, and then put in 5 positive statements about positive self-talk.
Mhm.
And some of my high S's, it's hard for them to do because you're so smart, you're so strategic and method and everything, like a book. And they look at me and they say, you're telling me to basically lie to myself, though, because I really feel like we don't have a chance against this, or whatever you're thinking or whatever you're doing to yourself. And I'm always like, yeah, I am. I want you to replace the negative thoughts with positive. And yes, at first it might feel like you are kind of rose-colored glasses. I'm kind of fibbing, talking, is that not real? But somebody that's on TV for what they do, their ankle might hurt so bad they're about ready to cry, and they tell themselves there is no pain. I don't feel it. My ankle is fine. I'm not going to die. And it's not there. And they just fill themselves with positive self-talk and go on. So self-talk is something that you could really try. I work on that all the time myself, just starting to be aware of how you really get real with yourself, how you talk to yourself. And Michael Phelps had a fun, he's high S, the famous former swimmer, Olympian, and his coach had him through every doorway the year before the Olympics, every doorway. So you think of how many doorways you walk through in a day. He would say, I'm the greatest swimmer ever. And we are, at the end of the day, what we think and what we say. And so with your craft of writing and teaching and showing and all of you all, what is your story? What are you saying? What do you believe about yourself? And when you start to change that, and we haven't really talked about the 1,100-pound partner or the cute pony partner, they are craving for us to be leaders, confident, positive, and cool, calm, and collected, and then they're ready to go for us. But, when we're in an imbalanced state of stress and overthinking and not talking too positively, I see it day in and day out in my, they react. And I don't have to tell you all that.
That's a good point. Like manifesting it like you said, through every doorway. I mean, thinking about every doorway, if you tell yourself, I'm gonna something, I don't know, basic for day to day. I'm gonna teach a great lesson today. I'm gonna teach a great lesson today. Like, I mean that, because some days I'm like, oh my gosh, I just can't do it. And then if I keep telling myself I'm gonna do a great lesson today, I'm gonna do a great lesson today, it really, I mean, yeah, just thinking about it and saying it out loud now changes your mindset and gets you amped and ready to go.
Because it changes the feeling and confidence and feeling good and joy and feeling positive. Those are feelings. Bad part of that statement is feelings can be fleeting, right? Come and go. But that positive self-talk, visualization, other keys like that can change feelings really, really quickly. I think
So, Betty, let's say,
yeah.
I'm sorry, let's say I have positive self-talk for weeks before the show. I'm in the warm-up ring, lots of positive self-talk, and I trot into that show ring, and all of a sudden I'm cantering, and I'm supposed to be trotting, and it's taking me forever to get my trot back. I finally get it. What am I saying to myself now? Because I just massively blew my whole first rail. What does my self-talk look like? Because it's hard to have positive self-talk live when you've just messed something up.
You would want to just think about riding. What step are you riding right now? That's in the past. That is gone. You see it every show. I saw it. We just had 4 days of the Shelbyville Horse Show. A mistake does not mean, a lot of times it doesn't mean much. If you're marching down the rest of the show, showcasing your gorgeous horse in a great fashion, that cantering just coming into the ring, sometimes judges don't even judge that yet, correct? So the answer to your question is, what do you think or what do you do? You are power of now, present moment bubble of getting back to feeling that step what is underneath you, and then you forget.
And
So
before I reveal myself a little bit too much with that, so if I was putting myself in Chris's shoes, I don't know if this is just a me statement or maybe a lion statement, but when something happens to me like that, I feel like it was instilled in me from a very young age. I've always kind of thought to myself, well, someone can always mess up worse than you just did. So I don't know if that's like a me thing. I don't know if that's a lion thing. I don't know. I feel like it might be a lion thing because it could. I don't mean it to put someone else down, but it could come across that way if you say it to the wrong person. But that's like the first thing that always comes to my head. It's like, well, someone else could do worse than me, so let's keep going.
and therein is a high strength of a lion. Just go right on. I love it. Yes. Gabby, I think the last tool that I wanted to talk about was quiet eye. It is simply the ability to stare at one point, to create ultimate focus and a cool, calm, and collected mindset is using quiet eye technique. And all it is prior to even going into the, 30 minutes before the show, you can start practicing it. All it is picking out points and centering your eyes on them, and you will instantly feel a calmness because it dials down all the clutter in your brain by creating a laser focus on one focal point. Therefore, we start finding focus, which is less worry about everything about around us. So this is what Air Force pilots practice, Formula One race car drivers again. Next time you watch the professional bull riders, you'll see them getting into a trance before they get on the bull. Think of your favorite trainer rider horse combination. That trainer is busting down the rail, driving that horse from the back end to a point. They're not looking down, checking their diagonal, or looking left to see what somebody's telling them, or they're not looking, and so they are using their eyes fixed on a point to create ultimate focus. So Gabby, quiet eye throughout your workday, throughout at the barn, working with students, that will really help you find focus all day too and not overthink.
Yeah, that's a good. I need to implement that just to focus and get rid of everything else that I might be thinking about, or even like the next day, or what's going to happen in an hour, or even what happened previously in the day, and just focus on in the moment is yes. Yep.
Correct. And the trainers, the instructors and trainers in the room, when you all are saying pick a lane, pick a point, ride to here, or have the drills and that, what you're doing scientifically with the mind is you are creating a focus for your student and something that they can focus on and therefore not be thinking a lot, and they're going to perform athletically better in that, using their eyes and a lane or a spot or however you teach that.
This stable-minded episode is brought to you in part through the support of Sold by Sunday. Are you looking to buy, sell, or promote in the show horse world? Sold by Sunday is your one-stop digital destination for weekly online auctions featuring show horses, equine embryos, stud services, tack, buggies, trailers, and even equine art and collectibles. Or use Show Horse Blast to promote your horse's achievements through their powerful email and social media exposure. Whether you're selling, shopping, or celebrating, Sold by Sunday's got you covered. Go to www.showhorsesales.biz or search Sold by Sunday to get started today. And now we've come to my turn. Some of you may know that I started working with Betty before our initial podcast. I knew that I allowed my years of practice ways of thinking to get in my way. And I just wanted to find ways to be a better trainer, instructor, and exhibitor. When I took the DISC test, I scored a whopping 48% in compliance, along with another 34 in steadiness. And even with my poor math skills, I know that doesn't leave much room for the other two. That being said, Betty had her work cut out, and she's really helped me make strides forward. Now, I know I started out this workshop by saying that we were setting out to show you what a second session with Betty would look like. But for my session, we're going to go a little bit further, and now you kind of get to see what maybe a few more sessions into working with Betty might look like. So now, Betty and me.
Well, I will start out. So Bob and I share the high compliant trait. I wish I could turn my computer around. I've got a 92-pound, 13-year-old golden retriever. I call this trait the golden retriever, meaning that Bob will go to great lengths to make things perfect and follow rules and institute guidelines and set expectation levels and wants to do well. And that's the C trait is a champion trait because they will work hard, like goals, they like standards. We're standards people. And those are all great things, great things. The problem with too much, and what was your percentage of your first go round test?
I scored a 48%. And
He's very, very high. And all of that, those good things that come from that trait of wanting things to go well, a planner, execution, um, wanting a great performance can go south pretty fast because we get consumed with wanting to control things, consumed with if things are going to go to our standards. And then loyalty comes with this trait, and also wanting everyone else to be doing well around us, especially if we're involved in the project, which he is for his clients, and so on. And basically, it creates a lot of weight on the shoulders. We make things harder than they really are. And Bob, you can kind of take over from there. Do you want to share some of your or one of your tools that seemed to really help after our first conversation that was a real game changer?
we had talked just before Madison Classic, and I think I will probably start saying is that I was a little bit skeptical, especially about mantras. And I don't know, it sounds just a little naive or simple. And anyway, I ended up coming to my mantra just a little bit by accident. There was somebody there at the show, and they were upset, and I was kind of about to get kind of drawn into the drama and invest a bunch of time and energy and thought into it. And I think because I had done so much editing and listening to your story about the train analogy, but you had used it in terms of social media and not allowing certain people to board your train, and whose opinions you were going to keep in, and whose you were going to kick off. And for some reason in my head, I had flipped that a little bit and kind of got to thinking about it. Like I used to take the train into Chicago, and I would get to the station, and there were so many numbers that were similar, and I needed to get on train 205, and I would look and see it and be like, oh, there it is. And only to realize it was train 502. And I would look at that and go, that's not my train. And that stuck in my head. And so as I kind of saw this drama kind of going down, and I was about to kind of get invested in it, I was like, that's not my train. Like, I don't want to get on it. It's not going where I want to. And so I just used it that time and kind of walked away from that situation. And then I guess I kept using it all week. Like something would come up or somebody would say something, and I would just start feeling a little guilty, or I was going to kind of get drawn into something that didn't feel good. And I would just look at it and go, it's not my train. And so as I continued to do that throughout the week, it really helped me kind of stay focused on what I wanted to do, and not be distracted by all the other things that maybe would normally grab my attention, and I would get mentally and physically invested in, and allowed me to kind of keep focus and kind of dial down some of my anxiety and just, I guess, busyness. And then the second one, and Betty and I have talked about this, but because of our schedule at the horse show, I had the opportunity to show Susan Ashton-Brenner's world champion harness mare, Dreammaker's Chapel of Love. And I've probably driven her 2 or 3 times at home. And I was really nervous about showing her. She's been really successful, and I wanted to do a good job for Susan and for Tom, and I wanted to do a good job for the mare. I didn't want to let her down, and I really started to get in my head about it. And I just remember that you were talking about catch riders, and I was like, I don't think she needs any of this. And I kind of kept thinking about like the line that you kept saying about what does that horse need? And I think you were talking about it a lot when we were talking about catch riding in the first installment. And so I just kept trying to do that. Like, what does she need? And so I listened to Tom and tried to implement what he was telling me to do. And then I had a couple people coaching me on the rail, and Mark Utoff was helping me, and I was listening to his feedback and trying to implement what he was telling me to do. And in the end, that's what I did. And it helped me keep me in the present moment. And it took a lot of the clutter of my thoughts away and just kept me really focused. And it just let me try to be there for that mare and do what she needed me to do. And then the last thing I will say on that is, everybody who's listened to the podcast, and Betty too, is you've had to hear me talk about this all the time, is I keep trying to find a way to get back to really loving this like I used to. There was something in being in that moment and just thinking about that horse and what that horse needed, and kind of not letting that experience be muddied by my fear of not letting somebody down or possibly getting her beat, or, just anything going wrong. Just being able just to be there, and like it was a great opportunity. I was getting to show such a nice horse, and is just a blast to drive. And I was able to kind of push all of that other thinking aside and just be there and really have a lot of fun driving her.
Love it. So you wrote a different story, changed the narrative. Love it. I love the story about what the horse needs too, because we haven't really, again, it's all about finding the chemistry and partnership with your horse or pony, driving or riding, and to kind of shift the focus to that in itself will help focus and help relieve a lot of stress and tension, and pay attention to what's underneath you or what you are driving and what that horse needs at that second. And then the outcome's going to be probably pretty good.
I was wondering if you would talk a little bit about what you need to do to stay on track or to stay on this journey. For me, in the very beginning, it was kind of new and it was fun. I had some initial success, and so that gave it a lot of momentum, and it was kind of easy. And now, a few months down the road, I've had good horse shows and not as good a horse shows. I've had good days in training and not good days in training. I've given good lessons and I've had some really bad lessons. What do I need to do to keep this momentum going and keep moving forward in this process?
If you can kind of adopt looking at the physical part, like we take lesson after lesson and go and ride, trying to improve our physical game of it, correct? And we know to put the hours and the weeks and that work hard. Are you willing, though, with mind space to work on that as much? So if you kind of look at it like that, it will create the incentive to attack it, so to speak, and work on it like you would anything. And then it takes time. And yeah, you might, maybe you forgot to write in your strengths and weaknesses of each ride for 3 times. That's okay. Just get back to it, and you're going to wake up and realize you are creating a process and sticking to it more. And then the better performances are naturally just going to kind of come to you without. I always tell people sports are brutal, just brutal. It's like the more we work and the more we try and the more we go around, it's like it's elusive. It goes away. But the second that you kind of let the outcome thoughts go, let the dreams, now I'm good about dreams of Louisville and winning in January. Those are called goals. That's okay. Throw those out, do a vision board, whatever. But then we dive into the other 364 days of process and just dive into that, and the great things will happen. So to answer your question, it's tough. It takes time. You might slip a little bit and then get back on the train, but just kind of creating that commitment and a schedule, for the mental game. Gabby, to your point of kind of changing self-talk, like right into my notebook is starting out daily with 3 things to be thankful for. A game changer, the way I look at my day, if I can do that. So I write that down as actually a to-do. I mean, how crazy is that? That I have to write down to be positive, but it works.
Mm-hmm. Gives you an outlook for your day, a guideline for your day to not backtrack and have self-doubt or negative talk about yourself. Yeah.
Yes, because what is the book? The Secret. It's a great book about the frequencies that we put out are going to attract. We are what we think, we are what we say, that it actually attracts. We attract that. Going to have a bad day. My mare's going to be game today. It's 52 degrees. Oh my gosh, is she going to run off? Am I going to go, oh gosh, oh, now it's raining. She hates puddle. Oh, I'm not going to have a good go. Get out my notebook, see the 6 years of notes. Like my daughter Molly always kids me. Yeah, Mom, you should have it by now. 6 years of notes of lessons with my horse and everything. And I look at that, I feel confident, say some positive affirmations, have a plan for the day for the lesson. What do I want to accomplish? All of a sudden you have a great day.
So I know we're kind of coming to the end of this, but before we go, I just wanted to ask you, is there any difference or change in the way that we approach these, I guess what we would call a bigger challenge or kind of a big goal like Louisville Monarch or the finals, like something that we deem to be more important than like the regular horse shows that were happening earlier in the season? Do we attack it differently than we would a horse show that was earlier in the season?
You get me to the end of this and controversial topic comes up. A lot of people don't understand what I'm getting ready to say, but to think like an elite athlete, to think like a champion, to think like a professional, you had a start to the season with your first class and you have an end to the season with your last class. In between that are other shows, which are other points. Each show, therefore, whether it's a tiny little county fair, you're going to bring the intensity of your structure, your pre-show, your mantra, your routine, your process, how you ate. Did you have a bottle of wine the night before? Did you, you're going to set up a great process. And whether that is the county fair or Louisville, that is still, it's a show. That is elite mentality. To bring your cool, calm, collected focus, connection with your horse, and therefore a great performance to all of these dots that are all learning things too, and everything we've talked about. So that brings the controversial statement of just another open gate. It's going to swing open. Yes, the ring might be a little bit bigger. It's still a ring. There's going to be a beginning to the class and an ending. There's going to be judges. There's not really anything different that you didn't experience at the small show. A lot of people have trouble with that. It's a little controversial. It sounds like I'm putting down the great big event that but it's reality in high level athletics that the worst thing that you want to do is create this big thing coming up that is going to cause you to get off of your process. I just think a closing thought for everyone is that if you can, adopt, trust the process, that if you really want to be good in something, is to kind of let's make a commitment to kind of let outcome, ribbons, what's going to happen, the big show, whatever, go, and find joy and present moment and be able to focus and enjoy and perform better by trusting the process. And you have to kind of just adopt that philosophy. I'd say that's a good closing statement. As well as when you want something really bad, it kind of becomes a part of your persona or soul or whatever, and to be really careful about separating performance and how you're doing from yourself. My mom was a great influence in reminding me that all the time. And that way you are relieved of pressure and relieved of things so that you're free and clear to perform at your best.
Betty, that is a perfect way to wrap this up. I just want to thank you so much for once again taking time to spend with us and help us get our mental game even that much more on track. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thanks for hanging in there you all this long. And I loved it. I could stay till, whatever. It's so much fun. Thank you. You all have got to update me. You have to update me.
For sure.
Yes.
Thank you for this.
Well, everyone, that's a wrap. I want to thank Chris, Alex, and Gabby, and most of all, I want to thank Betty for sitting down with us today and helping us create and implement some tools that can help make our next lesson or even our next horse show go even better. So from all of us at Stable Minded and everyone at the Monarch Series National Championship Horse Show, we wish you the best of luck in your upcoming horse show endeavors. Now put down your phone, maybe jot something down in your notebook, and then pick up the reins. We'll see you back here next time.